This is the story of Scott Adams, the cartoonist who created one of America's most widely syndicated comic strips, and how his rapid fall from cultural prominence ended with his death on January 13, 2026, at age 68. For over 3 decades, Dilbert was everywhere, in nearly 2,000 newspapers, read by 150 million people worldwide. But in just 3 days in February 2023, Adams destroyed his career with a single live-streamed rant. This is what happened. Scott Raymond Adams was born on June 8, 1957, in Windham, New York, a town in the Catskill Mountains. His childhood dream was to become a cartoonist. He wanted to be the next Charles Schulz, but life had other plans. At age 11, the famous artists' school rejected him. Their minimum enrollment age was 12. Years later, when he took a drawing class in college at Hartwick, he got the worst grade in the class, so he gave up on art and pursued economics instead, earning his degree in 1979. For the next 16 years, Adams bounced between jobs. He worked as a bank teller at Crocker National Bank, where he was robbed at gunpoint twice. He earned an MBA from UC Berkeley in 1986, then spent 9 years at Pacific Bell in San Ramon, California, working as a computer programmer, financial analyst, product manager, and strategist. By his own account, he never managed more than 7 to 15 people. Then, in June 1995, his boss asked him to resign, citing budget constraints. That's when Adams finally pursued his childhood dream, and this time, it worked. On April 16, 1989, while still working at Pacific Bell, Adams launched Dilbert with just 35 newspapers. The comic strip was born from his real experience, sketches he made during tedious meetings, featuring caricatures of his actual coworkers and their absurd management decisions. The character of Dilbert came from a naming contest among Adams' colleagues, and the design was inspired by a coworker with a unique physique. Dilbert himself was socially awkward, much like Adams was, but professionally competent. That combination resonated with office workers everywhere. By the year 2000, Dilbert appeared in approximately 2,000 newspapers in 65 countries, read by an estimated 150 million people. It was competing with Peanuts, Doonesbury, and Garfield as one of the most widely syndicated comics on Earth. Adams was also an early internet pioneer. In 1995, Dilbert became the first syndicated comic strip published for free on the internet, and Adams included his email address in each strip, creating what he called a direct channel to customers. But his success didn't stop with the comic strip. In 1995, Adams articulated what would become known as the Dilbert principle, the satirical management concept that companies systematically promote their most incompetent employees to management positions to minimize the damage they can do. When he published a book about it in 1996, the Dilbert principle became a #1 New York Times bestseller, staying on the list for 43 weeks. Over his career, Adams wrote over 40 books that sold more than 10 million copies total. He launched an animated TV series on UPN that premiered in January 1999 and became the network's highest-rated comedy series debut at that time. In 1997, Office Depot spent $30 million on an advertising campaign featuring Dilbert, his first major appearance outside the funny pages. By any measure, Scott Adams had achieved the American dream. He'd gone from rejected art school applicant to one of the most successful cartoonists in history. But success, it turns out, came with a cost. Starting in the mid-2000s, Adams began making increasingly controversial public statements. In 2006, he questioned the widely accepted figure of 6 million Jewish deaths during the Holocaust, suggesting it might be exaggerated. Years later, in 2011, he posted a controversial blog comparing strategies for dealing with women to strategies for dealing with children and the mentally disabled. He later retracted that post, but the damage was done. In 2015, he predicted that Donald Trump would win the 2016 election with a 98% probability, when virtually everyone else predicted a Clinton victory. He based this on Trump's superior persuasion skills. Trump won, and Adams felt vindicated. He became a vocal Trump supporter, later writing a book called Winning Bigly, analyzing Trump's persuasion tactics. He even met Trump at the White House. In early 2022, he tweeted that he would self-identify as a woman until President Biden named his Supreme Court nominee, a jab at progressive politics. But these earlier controversies were just warning signs. The real reckoning came in February 2023. On February 22, 2023, during a live stream on YouTube, Adams discussed announced a Rasmussen Reports poll. The poll had asked Americans whether they agreed with the phrase, "It's okay to be white." The results showed that 53% of Black respondents agreed with the statement, 26% disagreed, and 21% were unsure. What Adams said next would end his career. He called Black Americans a hate group. He told white people to get the hell away from Black people, just get the F away. He said, "There's no fixing this. This can't be fixed." And he concluded, "I'm going to back off from being helpful to Black America." Within days, the consequences were swift and total. By February 25th and 26th, hundreds of newspapers dropped Dilbert. The Washington Post dropped it. The Los Angeles Times dropped it. The Boston Globe dropped it. USA Today dropped it, along with 300 plus local newspapers in 43 states. On February 26th, Andrews McMail Universal, which had distributed Dilbert to approximately 1,400 newspapers, terminated its relationship with Adams entirely. His syndication empire, built over 34 years, collapsed in 3 days. Adams tried to defend himself. He claimed he was using hyperbole and exaggeration to shock people and get their attention. He said he was trying to drive traffic to his website, but there was no walking this back. His publisher, Penguin Random House, canceled publication of his upcoming book, Reframed Your Brain, and removed his back catalog from their offerings. Adams acknowledged the magnitude of what had happened. He said that most of my income will be gone by next week. Just 1 week after newspapers dropped Dilbert on March 13, 2023, Adams launched Dilbert Reborn, a subscription-based online service where he could post what he called an uncensored and spicier version of the strip. Subscribers could pay $3 a month on X, formerly Twitter, or $7 a month on a platform called Locals to access daily comics and other content. But it was clear that his career had fundamentally changed. The mainstream success was over. What remained was a niche audience of supporters willing to pay to read his work. For the next 2 years, Adams continued posting comics and hosting a daily live stream called Real Coffee with Scott Adams, where he discussed current events and his personal opinions. He had tens of thousands of regular viewers, but it was a fraction of the audience he'd once commanded. In May 2025, Adams announced something unexpected. On his daily podcast, he revealed that he had been diagnosed with prostate cancer that had spread to his bones. He called it the bad kind. He said he had the same type of cancer as President Joe Biden, but his was more advanced. His initial prognosis was grim. He expected to die by summer. He was in constant pain and used a walker to get around. By June, he had even prepared for physician-assisted suicide under California's End-of-Life Option Act. He planned to end his life on June 29th or 30th after his stepdaughter's wedding, but then something unexpected happened. Adams began taking a common testosterone blocker pill, and the pain disappeared. His PSA levels, a measure of cancer progression, dropped by 90%. Suddenly, instead of weeks, he thought he might have months or even years left. By December 2025, Adams was paralyzed below the waist. He underwent radiation therapy, but the cancer continued spreading. On January 1st, 2026, speaking on his daily live stream, he told his audience that his radiologist had delivered all bad news. He said the odds of recovery were essentially zero. "I had an amazing life. I gave it everything I had. If I get any benefits from my work, I'm asking that you pay it forward as best as you can. That's the legacy I want. Be useful, and please know I loved you all to the very end." On January 12, 2026, Adams entered hospice care at his home in Pleasanton, California. His ex-wife, Shelley Miles, her sister, and his stepdaughter, Savannah, provided care alongside nurses. On the morning of January 13th, 2026, just today, Shelley Miles announced his death during a live stream of Real Coffee with Scott Adams. Scott Adams was 68 years old.